All right, Yankees win 4-2. The boys will be on to Cincinnati, as Bill Belichick likes to say. And I know, Jake, you love that. Yeah, the 29-year-old Alan Winan set to take the mound tomorrow.
I love that.
Another no day off for the Yankees, and we're right back to it. But today's breakfast matchup on Roku, right? Our two stars of the day, Ben Rice, Jazz Chisholm Jr., 5 hits between the guys, right? Aaron Boone. Actually, Jake, we talked about this quite a bit yesterday. I think we went on a little longer than we anticipated, but we sort of thought that, these two were going to have to find their way in the lineup, and you're going to have to ride the hot hand. And we talked about Ben Rice. That's sort of the idea, how we're getting started, how we're kicking this off, is that whether or not Aaron Boone is going to ride with a player and put this guy back in, he did, right? So we've got to give him credit. Jake, how are we feeling? Because I know we're hyped up about Ben Rice. We love it. We're used to watching him line out every day, but they're starting to fall.
I know. He had one. What was it? By the way, Buck Showalter on the call was kind of cool. I'm not going to lie. And he pointed out how, I think it was Jeff Nelson actually that pointed out, that was not even a swing on a check swing that he hit down the third base line. Why do we never see that against the shift? Like, I would do that every time if I could. That was awesome. But it was kind of, it really encapsulated today's game for Ben Rice. It's not that he's been struggling really at all. He's been hitting the crap out of the ball. Just a matter of fact that he'd be hitting it right at a glove. And
Did that surprise you, by the way, with Goldschmidt? Because Goldschmidt, we all thought that he would play. He didn't play yesterday. A lot of people have him as this future Hall of Famer, or he's
I was surprised.
Just future Hall of really good, right?
Yes.
And even Boone talked post-game. He's like, the fact that he's out there pinch running should tell you everything. I mean, the fact that he's willing to do it is crazy. But at the same time, we anticipated that Boone would sort of make this mistake, right? You mentioned the splits yesterday. It sort of justifies anytime we face a right-handed arm, we should see Ben Rice over at first base. And when you see that lefty, Paul Goldschmidt, what he does against southpaws is special. So we saw it today, and you'd think, okay, if they want to look at the numbers and take a deeper dive back to what you said, we should see Ben Rice today, and that's exactly what Aaron Boone did.
Yeah, I love this from Ray, is the positive Ben Rice regression finally happening. That is exactly how I would, explain today's game. I think this is the positive regression. This is what happens when you hit the ball 110 miles an hour at every single glove. Eventually, you're not going to have those moments. And the excuse me swing that went down the third baseline and was fair and got him a single, I mean, that is right there. That is a sign that his bad luck is turning around. And I hate to be, one of those people that believes in luck and bad luck and all of that, but it's real. It is. I mean, the probability standpoint, you can't possibly hit at a glove forever, right? But we keep seeing, we talked about with Wells last year, went 2 months, and we start seeing Ben Rice. We're like, oh my God, this guy's constantly mashing the ball. It's right at somebody. Well, today it wasn't. And you just love the at-bats he's putting together. That one that he hit, I think it was on the third at-bat, that pitch is not an easy pitch, man. That's high heat. He takes that. It was inside as well. I'm at the point where I just want to see Ben Rice play every single day. And if Paul Goldschmidt needs to play first, which he does, right? He's one of the better first basemen in baseball. Fine. Then he should catch. And if you feel like you need to throw Wells or Escara in there, because I'm not going to rescind what I was saying about Escara the other day, I still think he deserves some more playing time, then you figure out another spot to put Ben Rice. The bottom line is, Ben Rice, after the performance he has had this year, the maturation he is showing at the plate, things that were keeping him completely off balance last year that he's mashing in the strike zone, outside the strike zone, his ability to pull, his ability to hit dead center, even, we saw use the opposite field a little bit. He is a de facto everyday player. He just is. He's one of the better players on this team. And I know, we struggle to say he's better than, say, Cody Bellinger or whatnot, but I think the volatility, I feel like the potential of Ben Rice is as high as anybody on this team outside of Aaron Judge, who's an alien, right? But when you talk about Ben Rice, I mean, you're talking essentially about a Giancarlo Stanton level pop, right? You're talking about a guy who's a line drive hitter like Stanton. He should be in there every day. The only reason I understand why Stanton is not is because you're trying to keep him healthy. He did just come back, and he can only theoretically be in one position. That's DH. So, yeah, I want to see more of Benny Basmati, Gary. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I probably won't give him Giancarlo pop, but I see what you're saying. The exit velo is special. I mean, it's not like he's hitting 105-mile-an-hour liners. He's hitting the ball 115. He's raking. And Ben Rice is incredibly strong. But I think the way that this is turning out, it's working out perfect. You give the 36, 37-year-old Paul Goldschmidt 2 days, right? Back-to-back days off, and then he destroys left-handers. Well, who do we face tomorrow night, right? Nick Lodolo, left-hander. Anthony Volpe, that's somebody that we're going to talk about here very shortly. He had a scheduled day off today. A lot of people had a problem with that. Obviously, he had a 3-for-4 day. And you think to yourself, well, yeah, so did I. But we wouldn't have complained 2 or 3 days ago if you told us, hey, Sunday, you're not going to watch Anthony Volpe. I probably would have told you, awesome. I'd love to see that.
I'll be there.
It sounds great. But Anthony Volpe also has better numbers against lefties. You assume Volpe will be back in the lineup tomorrow. It just seems to make sense. Ben Rice played back-to-back days. He played at first base. We didn't expect that. But Ben Rice probably will be sitting tomorrow. And then you have a lot of guys, left-handers on this roster who have reverse splits. Guys like Cody Bellinger, right? Guys like Trent Grisham take quality at-bats against lefties. I think that's what they're going to do. Maybe you see Wells. Maybe you see JC. Who knows? But I think that's starting to make sense. What the Yankees do at first base, what they do in terms of DH, what they do in terms of catcher. I think if Ben Rice can play well enough with the bat, they should just find a way to either have him catching, be at first base against righties, or DHing for essentially Stanton to have a day off. So I love what happened. I don't want to make it seem like every day that Boone makes a lineup, I have a problem. I liked what happened today. And maybe you can bring up the conversation about Volpe, but I was pretty happy.
Yeah, no, I definitely was really happy with today. The lineup, I would prefer Judge at third, but, if Judge isn't going to be the third hitter, I like Ben Rice there. I like him clean up. I like him third. I like him hitting at the top of the order. It really kind of reinforces the idea, because I still, keep in mind, I know, I spoke a little bit to Clint today. I know Clint Frazier has said that Boone doesn't make the lineups. I still think they do. I still think it goes through Boone. My point here is there's a reinforcement letting us know Boone views Ben Rice as a top 5 hitter on this team.
Yeah, because the analytics can't change that much, right? Because when they say that computers come up with the lineups, well, then the computer wouldn't change that much, right? Because Ben Rice doesn't have a consistent spot to play in the lineup. And again, maybe if he was hitting 320, then you can justify him hitting third or just penciling him in one spot. But things change every day. It feels like there's somebody just looking at it and just kind of, as the AI, we can't necessarily share it here, but the AI pictures were sent to us. It seems like someone is just picking names out the hat. So, again, I don't have a problem with the order. We've talked about Ben Rice putting the ball on the ground a lot. Maybe his launch angle could use some tweaking. You put him at third, there potentially could be some double play balls. You can get out of that by putting him at the top of the lineup. But I don't have a ton of problem. Brian with the super, thank you for the 5, Brian. Greatly appreciate it. Says offense was trash today. Literally won the game because of Jazz. Forcing Stanton hurts the team. Forcing him to play. And Cashman needs to retool the bench at the deadline. So, Brian, here's the good news. Jazz Chisholm plays on the team.
Yeah.
That's the good news. So you can watch any team play baseball, right? And you can watch the Dodgers today. You can watch anybody. You can watch the Padres. And you can say to yourself, well, if it wasn't for this one player, we won by 2 or 3, we would have lost today. Our offense only scored 2 or 3. The average team in baseball scores about 4 runs a game. That's just the math of it. There's not a ton of offense, and offense is declining. It just is. And you see, obviously, what's going on with velocity, what's going on with spin. Is an excuse not to score, not to be consistent? Probably not. But Brian, Jazz Chisholm was traded for last deadline. So we have to be happy about what he did today. And you know what? Tomorrow in Cincinnati on the road, it could be just another name. It could be Paul Goldschmidt as the reason that we walk away with a win. So I'm not going to complain because one player was the difference maker.
Well, the player that was the difference maker, which makes a lot of sense, is hitting 339 in June since he came back from an injury, 415 on base, 536 slugging, and a 951 OPS. And for the year now, he's hitting 242. This is a guy that was hitting like 160 when he got hurt. So, yeah, Jazz is, like I said, right before our eyes turning into a star. The question is, how far will he go? How high will he ascend? But as far as that super chat goes, I don't like the idea of forcing Stanton. I disagree. They actually, the 3 strikeouts in the first 3 at-bats tell you why Stanton being on the bench is really bad for him. He is a streaky hitter. He always has been. So when you take him out of the lineup, now, kind of like what we talked about with Aaron Judge, look at how rusty he looked in those 3 at-bats. Was it a shock to you? The 4th at-bat, he starts showing some more fight. He got, going as the process of the game came through, and I think he kind of shook off the rust. And that 4th at-bat, he was in control. We knew he was going to get a hit. You can tell when Giancarlo Stanton's locked in and he's going to get on base, and, he's got that patented line drive that's just, it's hard as hell, but it doesn't go far enough where it's going to be caught. And he
Can I
loves
ask you,
hitting
though,
that
about
thing.
Stanton? Because
of course,
I want to hammer this home here, because I think we both agree. Has there ever been a postseason run where Giancarlo Stanton wasn't just good, but has there ever been a time where he wasn't great?
Not that I know of.
Not that you know of. Not that I know of either. I didn't.
Someone
no.
send it to me if there has been.
If there has been, I would love to see it. So when we say that Giancarlo is forced into the lineup, I'll actually agree with you. I will agree with that super chat. He is forced in the lineup. But I think where we're going to disagree is that he should be forced in there. Michael K brought this up, I thought, beautifully, and I didn't think of it this way until he brought it up. We were talking about the fact that how are you going to have Ben Rice and Giancarlo splitting time? That just doesn't make sense. And at the time, Ben Rice was hitting 330, 340, right? He was lighting it up. He was hitting the balls in the seats almost every other day. And a lot of us were saying, you can't sit Ben Rice. You can't sit him in place of anybody, let alone Giancarlo Stanton, who's proven he can't stay healthy. Well, Michael K brought up the fact that Giancarlo's done too much when it matters most to possibly sit him. You have to play him. And if we go into October baseball this year, which most of us expect to be in, well, Giancarlo Stanton needs to be in the lineup. So you know what has to happen? In the middle or late of June, you're going to have a player playing and getting ready for the rev-up process in anticipation of getting into October. You're not just going to sit him till late August. It just doesn't work. So, yeah, he is forced in the lineup, but where we disagree, I think he should be forced. He's that good.
Just a reminder, this is now updated with his catching as well. Look at that pop time, right? He's on the average line for almost everything. Keep in mind, this is the average, right?
Yes.
He almost isn't below average at anything. Think about that. Everyone, like Judge, is literally in the 1 percentile, like the worst in the league in whiff percentage.
What's his expected batting average, by the way?
Oh, 294.
Okay, so if it's 294, you could actually make the argument. We just talked about his speed yesterday, right? We saw it. And legging out a triple, you see that speed. It pops off on the screen. He's not Ricky Henderson. But for his size, right, he can run. You can legitimately look at this player and say, maybe a year or two down the road, you might look at Ben Rice and say he's a complete player. Just describe him as that. You don't have to look at him as a power hitter.
Look at this.
You don't have to look at him as
way.
a pure contact. Right. So if he's giving you league average, right, defense or even above that, Ben Rice should play all the time. And maybe you find him some days off. I think you can maybe justify, given his numbers against left-handed arms, to sit him down tomorrow against Nick Lodolo. I have no problem with that. But more times than not, we see a right-handed arm. So that should tell me that more times than not, I should see Ben Rice in the lineup. And if I do that, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up because this is really what I was most excited to talk about. This is something Wells isn't even good at. Wells is great.
And what about the framing? Is the framing on there?
Yeah, it's average. You see, it's light because he doesn't have a ton. He doesn't have enough to be qualified in the percentile range, but you can just do the eye test here, And it's like he's basically, they're saying He's actually above average at caught stealing, right? At throwing guys out.
Okay.
Framing, he's average. He's not going to add anything crazy, but he's good enough baseline. He's below average blocking. That makes sense. You're not behind the plate a lot. Happens. But this pop time is going to make this go up over the course of time. If he has that pop time already, that's really good. That is really good. And
did you see the narrative online? The narrative was that, well, Austin Wells he's complimented a ton by our staff. Guys like Rodon, guys like Fried, right? The list goes on. They talk about the job that Wells does, catching the game, calling the game.
Yeah.
But what's so interesting is that when I was watching the beginning of Ryan Yarborough's last start, I was watching that and I heard a lot of excuse making that he got off to a slow start in the first inning, and people said, I think he's off because Ben Rice is behind the plate. And for those of you who remember, he did start that game. But what's funny about it is that Ryan Yarborough got right back on the horse and turned it into a quality start. You know what I didn't hear later in the day? That Ben Rice had anything to do with that. I think you guys have to give more credit and blame to the arm itself that's pitching. So I think you can legitimately make an argument that Ben Rice, if he's not playing first base, you're seeing a right-hander, he should catch. I really believe that, Jake. I do. And if he becomes a problem and these analytics defensively regress to the point where we consider it unplayable, then you make an adjustment off of that. And Austin Wells is young enough to rebound from it, but this guy, in terms of what the ceiling is offensively, I think it's high enough to put him in the lineup every day.
I would agree with that. And again, Austin Wells, I like him, but there's some real concerns here. Once the ABS system goes in, this framing isn't going to matter as much. So I'd like your pop time not to be in the 15th percentile, personally. That's just
They talked about that today as well, and they did bring up a pretty good point, is that yes, you bring in the ABS system, but there's only 2 challenges. So
that's true.
It seems like the framing is still going to be a major part of the game. You're not just going to challenge strike 1 in the second inning with your 8-hitter. So framing is still going to be a part of this game. Austin Wells, in his ability to frame, which is better than pretty much everybody else in baseball, it's going to matter. Is it going to matter maybe as much? Maybe not. But yeah, I don't look at it and say, oh, it's just completely nullified. But when you look at someone's Savant page, which, Jake, I'm glad you brought it up, you don't look at anybody. There's not one player in baseball where you can look at his numbers on this website and they look like that and they don't have a major role on their team.
Dude, this is the type of guy that you're trying to find at the deadline, knowing his stats suck, knowing the team doesn't use him. This isn't the guy that you don't play. This is the guy that you play. This is what we did with
Cruz, right? Isn't this what we did with Cruz? His ERA was
this
5.5.
Is literally Cruz.
Yeah.
Yeah. Except actually Cruz had 0, like he had like 1 percentile for some stuff. No. Ben Rice doesn't have he is literally average at the worst thing that he has, barely below average. And everything else, he is in the 90 percentile, or like this chase rate has gone way up from, I guess it hasn't. Right here, though, you see the strikeouts. The strikeouts, now he's not striking out nearly as much. And by the way, he was striking out in the minors. This is also kind of a example and kind of a,
Spencer Jones, huh?
Yes, right? That's what I was going to go with. This is kind of a reminder that guys aren't just doomed, oh, he strikes out all the time, whatever. Like Judge has really improved as a contact hitter, right? He still strikes out, but we've seen it. Ben Rice was like the 12th prospect in the farm system. Look at what he's doing. And there are people that are already like, yeah, Spencer Jones is trash. What did you text me today? He had his 15th home run.
Yeah, 15th bomb. So the verdict, you can't just come out with a verdict just because you watch somebody up to AA. The guy's 21, 22 years old. You can't just draw a conclusion as to what someone's going to be. Now, are they indications, right? Is there momentum towards drawing a conclusion? Sure. But you've mentioned Aaron Judge's power numbers in the minor leagues. It's not like he was hitting 80 bombs a year. He wasn't.
No.
But he was showing flashes, right? Cody Bellinger, same deal. obviously drafted out of high school out the 5th round for the Dodgers. He wasn't hitting 45 homers a year in the minor leagues. It was more of a contact oriented, and then he changes his stance later on in the minor leagues, right? And so you have to look up and say, what type of potential am I looking at? Who do I want to take a risk on? And I love this. I think that it goes to show that Spencer Jones and other prospects can show up and you can ask them to get better at certain ways in their game. Ask them to improve.
It's now up to 272. He literally
That's
had a
sky high
900.
compared.
Yeah, he had a 900 OPS,
Wow.
and he was hitting like 210. And
yeah. So I wonder
everyone
what he's
gave up
hitting.
on
Do
this
they
guy.
have those numbers? Do they have the numbers the last like 15 days? Because I'd be interested to see that.
Splits? Yeah, let's see. It's got to be crazy the last 15. It
Has
feels
to
like
be.
he's just doing crazy
He's
stuff.
probably a 300 hitter. And
Okay.
Yuri, thank you for the super. I know
June.
you're burnt into the screen. Keep Ben
Yes,
in the
thank
lineup.
you, Yuri.
Yes, totally agree. And I want to read this super, make sure we're caught up. Yankee Fangirl for Life also became a member last week. Thank you for doing so. Thank you for the 10. Says, first, we shouldn't be relieved to beat the O's this year. And sure, we should be relieved to
that's
beat
fair.
anybody. You got to take care of business. And that's the way this is. This is a business trip. Same deal with Cincinnati. Not a great team. We should expect to go win this series. There's a lot of baseball to be played, and we walked into that Colorado series thinking we're just going to beat the brakes off this team. We lose game 1, and now all of a sudden everybody's saying the sky is falling, right? So you have to go out and take care of business. And second, our batting is feast or famine. Third, you should do a live cast while watching the game. It'd be fun to see your reactions in real time. So we haven't really considered doing so. Obviously, we love kind of our model that we do now, being in a post game, and then of course we get to enjoy the game rather than being on camera the whole game, because there's some games where I'm just miserable. I'll tell you that, guys.
Yeah.
I have to really regroup.
It's tough because also Gary's like literally 3 batters ahead of me. I just don't know if it would work. Maybe someday we'll try it. But I don't, that's not really our brand. Because I think we're able to give the best analysis possible and our best opinions possible. We're able to fully digest what we're watching.
I don't feel like we give a fan reaction, because those live reactions are fan reactions. Like where you're watching people slam their desk and put a helmet on, and right with a propeller on it. Like, I don't think that's me. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if it's me, but maybe if enough people think that that's what we should do. But I wanted to get to this second point here, because this is a great super. So thank you for doing so.
Yes.
Feast or famine offense. I don't necessarily buy that either. We're just in a cold spell that involves, like, you need to look at guys and say you need to be held accountable. Guys like Anthony Volpe, or when you have guys that are 0 for their last 24, and then they give you a 3 for 4 night, and then they have a scheduled day off, you should anticipate it's going to be harder to score runs. When you have a black hole in the lineup like that, it's going to be hard to score. It's going to be hard to keep rallies going when you're just killing worms at the end of your lineup. But I will say this, and for those of you who think that I hate Volpe, Jake hates Volpe, our podcast or all of our audience hates Volpe, no, we do not. Because Anthony Volpe has an opportunity to reset, regroup, show up tomorrow against a left-handed arm and do damage and help us become more sustainable. There are a few guys in this lineup. Jazz Chisholm probably be the main guy who I want to jump to. He's more consistent. Jake, you don't read those numbers in terms of batting average, in terms of RBIs, right? In terms of ops. If he wasn't a more well-rounded player today than he was 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I'm happy to see what Jazz is doing. It sort of fixes this whole feast or famine idea of the Yankees lineup. What do you think about Jazz? Because Jazz was putrid in that first 2 to 3 weeks. I was tired of watching his approach. It was bad. It was dismal. It lacked adjustment. There was nothing good to say about it other than maybe the other side of the ball defensively. Offensively, he's one of our more valuable players today. What are you seeing?
I'm seeing and honestly, I saw it. There were 2 hits today, Gary, that easily are home runs if he puts the 110% swing. But also, that's if he contacts the ball with the 110% swing, which I don't think he would have. So I think those 2 drives, when he really sent it out to the wall, I think they were both because of that 70% he's talking about. And some people take that as, oh, he's not putting in the 30 extra percent of effort. No, what he's saying is he's trying to be more in control. He's trying not to overdo it, overswing, which you can do. I don't care what anyone says. You can absolutely overswing. And I think we're just seeing a more calm, cool, collected, and controlled player. And ultimately, when you have that athleticism and you have that knowledge of the game, and honestly, I think his strike, his batter's eye, I actually think it's very underrated. I think he sees the ball well. He's in the 84th percentile in walk percentage. So, I think he does draw walks as well.
Right? Would you describe him as conservative in terms of swing, like his swing choices? Because when I watch him, I feel like I've never watched a player, and maybe other people have a different perspective. I've never seen a player take more pitches, called for strikes on the corners. I rarely ever see
He does not
Jazz.
like the corners at all.
He hates them. They're just like, hee-ah, strike. And he like, turns around. He's like, all right, that's horrible. Right. Yeah. And you've sort of talked about this idea that Jazz gets a little bit too involved in conversations with the umpires. But what it tells me, the pitches on the corners are not the pitches to hit anyways. They're just not. You do damage against pitches in the middle of the plate, and you do damage against mistake pitches. So I think Jazz is doing everything. Ed
Great
W
way
says,
to explain this.
Jazz stopped hitting the square button. He looks fantastic. Yeah, for those of you who play MLB The Show, obviously came out on PlayStation, the square button being the power swing. That's all he was using. When you do make contact, you look like Ken Griffey Jr., but when you don't, you look like, I don't know what you look like. You don't look good, right? It's ugly.
Yeah.
What do you think about this, by the way? Do you like this?
I do. The only reason why I would say no right now is because I don't want to ruin Jazz at all. He's a creature of habit. As soon as they started messing around with him, that's when he started to struggle. Remember, because he started off, I think he was the 5th or 6th hitter, and then they started moving him all over the place. He was 7th hitter, 4th hitters, and that was when he started to struggle. I'm not trying to really do that, but I'm not against it because I literally said I was for it yesterday. I just think right now Jazz is hitting so well, and it appears that he likes being in that part of the lineup. And honestly, being in that part of the lineup today is a big reason why they won. If he was hitting earlier, he's not hitting with guys on base. He was important today with guys on base.
Of course, a guy, you saw Arias for San Diego. He was hitting 4th today, right? A contact bat. They're going to put him there because he'll give us some action. I love that chat. Member here, I absolutely love the idea. If I can't trust a player to continue his approach because I simply moved him in the lineup, I think that's insane. I like that you bring up that variable because
I do agree. Yeah,
it's a variable. It is. We talked about Anthony Volpe. He was red hot, right? At some point, we're like, hey, maybe while he's red hot, we can move him up to leadoff. The second he got there, ice cold, right? Ice cold. Just a different approach, being pitched differently. Okay. But I do feel like with professional hitters, guys who have been here more than a year or two, I should be able to trust them to know if he's going to change his approach to try and do too much, what evidence does Jazz Chisholm have where he's trying to do it all, where he's playing well? Jazz Chisholm trying to do it all is a bad baseball player. He is. But when he tries to do less, he tries to give us that 70% swing. He's talked about it a lot now. He's worried about the glove. He's worried about the speed game. He's dynamic. So I love that chat. I love the idea of him being at leadoff. Oh. And I know you love that because you think Jazz has the potential to be a star.
I do. And that 3-0 count. Think about that. He was interviewed after the game. It's like, oh, were you going to expand the zone a little bit? Did they just say green light, just swing? And he's like, nope. Was looking for one pitch, and he threw it, and I did what I did to it. I love that because that's discipline. Simple. Yeah, you're up 3-0. You should only be swinging if you have the green light from your team. So, yes, Oswald Peraza, you do not have the green light. 1. And 2, you should only be swinging at your pitch. I'm not like, oh, yeah, I have the green light. Now I'm going to swing at this carpet one. No, I'm not Vladimir Guerrero. And Vladimir Guerrero wouldn't be even swung at a 3-0 pitch in the dirt. So no one does. That's not a thing.
Yeah, if you do anything consistently, if you swing at pitches outside the zone, you're not going to be consistent. That's the common denominator between great players or not. If you look at a player and say, I feel like he just chases a lot, you're almost always exclusively describing a bad baseball player, a streaky baseball player. I mean, if you think about this, when you watch Giancarlo Stanton struggle, right? And he's the one exception where I'm like, okay, he's elite, and then he can look like the worst baseball player you've ever seen. Yeah. It's chasing.
George
You'll watch Giancarlo
cutting down a tree.
It is literally the worst at-bats ever. And then next thing you know, you look up and say, oh man, Giancarlo is one of the at-bats, if not the at-bat I'm waiting on. And you look up and it's October. There you have it, right? So he tends to get locked in. That's not how it works for everybody else. You like this super. So Ninja Hot Dog with the 5 says it's really, this is interesting. It's really problematic how much framing is prioritized when our catchers like Wells or Trevino beforehand were awful at throwing out runners. What do you think about this, Jake? I want you to lead this off.
I've been saying it. You know, I really hate getting on homegrown Yankee talents that I like. But, yeah, Ben Rice comes in. He starts his first ever game and throws a guy out. And what was the thing I said? They kept saying how, well, I don't know if we can play Ben Rice. He can't throw anybody out. No one can throw anybody out. And that includes JC Escara, who I really like. Nobody throws anybody out. And you know what they do? And I love Yes Network, but anytime that happens, they blame the pitcher. To your point earlier about Yarbrough, they say, oh, well, he's struggling because Yarbrough's struggling because of Ben Rice. It's even worse. They'll say, yeah, the pitcher took too long to go to the plate. That is true. That happens. That is a real thing. I'm not trying to say it's not. But it's not every time. And it's not all 5 starting pitchers. Not all 5 starting pitchers.
Trevino gave up 9 stolen bases in that series in Boston,
against the Red Sox.
And people said, well, it's because Stroman was slow to the plate and he's traditionally... Okay, absolutely there's a factor there. But 9 stolen bases? I've never seen anybody steal 9 bases off of Marcus Stroman. Matter of fact, it was a career high, and he's been around for a while. So this super is just fantastic because it brings up the point. You can't just look at a player and say, well, he's got this one flaw, and it's throwing. And so, yeah, he's not going to be able to play. Ben Rice is playing because he can rake, right? He can run, and he can field multiple positions. So I have no problem with it.
I had to throw this one up too. What are we kidding ourselves? I hope to God. Like, I don't remember this ever being said, but oh my God.
One time recently they said the throw failed because the frame was so good.
Like, bruh. No. That's just ridiculous. Don't make excuses. If a guy doesn't have it, he doesn't have it. Imagine you're watching football on Sunday and you're like, yeah, he didn't make that deep ball down the field because the wind was blowing and he didn't make it down the field because he has a noodle arm. And we knew this coming out of college, but we're now making excuses because you like the guy. We like all these guys, but like, come on now.
I don't really buy into the concept. I guess the last thing I'll say, I don't buy the concept that just because I mention something I don't like about a player and I prefer a certain player to take that role, I don't really think it's a witch hunt to do so. I mean, this is just baseball. No. I really don't find any one of these players so important that I'm going to wake up in the morning disliking them so much that I want to talk bad about them on our platform so that I can change the minds of other people. This is just sports. I mean, let's get serious here. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, Ben Rice is good enough to play over the guys that are in front of him. And framing is not going to be a reason that you can't put him behind the plate. Obviously, the arm, he actually has a hose, by the way. The pop time doesn't look like that if you don't have a cannon. So I'm going to I'll leave it there.
And then, Gary, we're talking about, remember we were talking about the Ben Rice playing him at second, playing at third. Yes. That came up when Austin Wells was considered the guy at catcher, but what if he's not? And I'm not trying to make this like they just won 4-2. Yes, thank you for the subscribe button there. They just won 4-2. Big win, and it was only the second of this kind this year. I don't know if you saw that, you catch that, but this is the second type of win.
I barely heard you. I was worried about the overlays. I wasn't. I'm sorry.
So this year they've only won, and this is one of them, twice where they were losing going in the 7th inning. So this is like kind of a big deal of a win. So I'm not trying to be negative, right? I like Austin Wells. I do. That said, Austin Wells, if he's going to have a 281 on base percentage the whole year and he's going to hit 220, right? That's not necessarily a catcher that I am making sure he's in the lineup before I'm making sure Rice is in the lineup. We were talking about getting creative and playing him at second and third to give him an opportunity to get in the lineup while also holding Wells in the lineup. But if Ben Rice can catch, which he can, he showed us, then Ben Rice could end up being the starting catcher. I think that's kind of what we're looking at here, because we see one guy who the baseball savant is having a wet dream over, and we obviously, he passes the eye test. We watched I'm surprised you didn't laugh. You were getting close there. But he passes the eye test. He does all the things on TV, in person, whatever, looks the part. And then you have another player who's really just struggling. And when you look at it, it's like Wells in August, Wells in July looked like an elite catcher. And right now, we keep talking about how he's in the top 5 or top 7 or whatever because of just how bad the catcher landscape is. Well, that's not necessarily good. Just because that's where he is, that's not necessarily good, right? Whereas Ben Rice, I mean, we're talking about a guy who, all year pretty much has been hitting the ball hard. And he's 59th in OPS right now, okay, which is a big deal considering he doesn't even get a chance to play every day. And he's had such bad luck. So just imagine if this was the changing of the guard or the turning of the tide, and today was really the moment where, okay, yeah, Ben Rice starts really turning the corner, and say he gets this average up to 270, right? That OPS is going to carry. Like, we're going to see that in the 880s. Maybe he gets back up to 900. I don't know. That's asking a lot. But at the same time, this is the type of player we're talking about, a 900 OPS guy that can hit 28 to 35 home runs in a season if given an opportunity. And more importantly, it's not just that this guy is a home run all or nothing guy. He's really turned into just bat to ball contact. The ratio is there. And that's why he has an expected batting average of 290. So, yeah, I know we kind of talked on.
I don't buy it. If he starts hitting 270, projected for 30 plus homers, right? He's like this all around player. The only thing that we have to get around is even with that production, even with it, I believe Aaron Boone, the way that he's been managing so far, he didn't do it today. Today was a good job. It just was. But as the weeks go on, if it's going to look like a timeshare still. I'm okay if you don't see Ben Rice tomorrow, left-hander, makes sense. But the next time you guys see a righty, and if you see Paul Goldschmidt over at first base, and somehow, some way, Giancarlo is over there as your DH, and Ben Rice is not catching, you're going to start to realize maybe the numbers don't even matter. Maybe the production it can't be good enough. Perhaps Aaron Boone might look at it as, well, it's just a great problem, and all of these guys are good enough to play, so I'll have all of them play equally. And I don't think that's a solution. I don't. I think Aaron Boone has to make a decision one way or the other. Either Ben Rice plays all the time or he doesn't play at all. And the only reason you should ever not play him at all is if you think you have better options. And right now we do not. So
if he develops as a catcher, I want to ask you this.
Yeah.
Say he develops into a little bit above average, which is what he's checking out to be, a little bit above average defensive catcher.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not the second best catcher in baseball with that ability? Maybe third best? He's top 3.
I have no idea where he would rank, but even if he was, let's just say I could snap my fingers and Ben Rice was the third best catcher in baseball. I still wouldn't have him catching into next year. He's my first baseman. I let Paul Goldschmidt go. I sort of clear, unless there are other options that the Yankees can upgrade in these ways, in massive ways, then I opt for that. But without it, I mean, the Yankees just have to look at it and say Ben Rice is 100% one of our best 9 hitters, but he's sort of overlapping. And Aaron Boone has to just simplify this process. He's overcomplicating it. He just is. I understand his job is keeping guys healthy, but the way to do that's not playing your best option 3 or 4 days a week. That makes no sense to me. It just doesn't. And I want to transition to our final topic before we get to our picks for tomorrow in Cincinnati with Winans. IKF. You've been waiting to talk about this player. Now, mind you, when people hear Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, they figure, oh, you must think IKF is like this star who's going to be a game changer for the Yankees. But what we always try to tell people is at the deadline, you need to trim the fat on your roster. If you think the Yankees have a problem in their bullpen, you need to figure out a solution over there. If you think the Yankees have a problem at third base or second base and there's too much volatility in terms of health, maybe a player is 36, 37, you don't trust they're going to be here long term, IKF can be much better than the guy he'd be replacing, really. And you mentioned it to me before we went live, Jake. It is Peraza. And Peraza is a great glove. We've seen what he does defensively. You saw it in spring training. IKF is a glove. He's won a Gold Glove at third base specifically. But offensively, he's not a problem. He's going to be able to hit for average. He's going to move the line. He's a good player. It's just you can't ask him to do too much. And given this roster, we're a top 5 offense in baseball. I know that sounds crazy to say, but when you put IKF on a team that already deals with that type of success, I think you can realize he's a bigger solution maybe than people like even understand.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. A guy that can play third base, Gold Glover, could also catch if you needed him to, which is bizarre. 4 catchers on the same roster.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But third base, shortstop, second. I think he also plays outfield as well. He has played left field, I believe. Probably did that with the Yankees. So, yeah, you're talking about a player that gives you some versatility. I think he's an underrated fielder. He doesn't have the analytical prowess in the field. Like, he's not going to get to balls that Volpe gets to. So, ideally, I don't know if I would play him at shortstop over Volpe as long as Volpe continues to hit. But having a rotation with LeMahieu might actually keep LeMahieu healthy, right? It'll keep LeMahieu healthy. And I think those two, yeah, I actually think that'd be a really good combination. And then, don't get me wrong, if Volpe starts to struggle, you could just, take some time and just be like, all right, put Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Or you could put him at third and just say, you know what, Jazz can be the shortstop on the days that we need to take out Volpe. The entire point here, though, is it's a guy with familiarity. We already know he can play in the Bronx, right? He was overhated from the get-go. He's a contact bat. You put him at the bottom of the lineup like a LeMahieu right now, and he can get those base knocks at the bottom of the lineup. When we're talking about, because I saw something about how today was kind of an all or nothing offense, very wishy-washy. I kind of disagree. They had 9 hits today, and most of today I felt like the Yankees were going to win. I just felt like they were ultimately better than like how it looked on the scoreboard. There were some errors. I mean, I thought Aaron Judge should have tagged up at third, and then Rojas should have been in his ear telling him to do so and sending him there. That was bizarre. I mean, that
we should have no expectations of the decision making out there. I don't know if it's the third. I have no idea if it's Rojas.
I have no idea.
I have no idea if it's our team IQ and our decision making. It doesn't work out.
He doesn't have the best sends, we'll just say. But you know what? I was glad he sent Goldschmidt, who he ended up sliding feet first. You got to love that. Jazz didn't. Jeez.
He doesn't have the best sends. What else does he do? If you really think about it, you're the third base coach. If the one thing we can say about you... They're saying he's a
Met industry plant.
Right. If you're going to say, hey, this guy doesn't... Of all the things he does, he's not very good at sending guys. Well, what else is there to do over there? You're going to... You essentially sit there and go, hey...
He gets people hyped.
Good luck.
He does a nice little celebration when Stanton comes around. He has a nice handoff.
I mean, let's get serious. If you're at second base, your first thought, I mean, you're not directly thinking of the third base coach, but he's sort of helping you get your leadoffs, right? There's a few things that they do, right? Hey, you can take another step. They start to give you some details as to maybe your next trip out on the base pass. Hey, remember a couple days ago we saw Wells just taking off like he was invisible to second base? And I was telling you guys, the first base coach needs to be in his ear. You just can't get picked off. You don't need a great jump. That's it. That's all you should have said, and he didn't say it. And he, of course, is out. But when your third base guy doesn't know when to send people, I feel like that's the most important part of the job. I do. I think it's very important. And, yeah, our sends are ridiculous. Obviously, the only ones that I enjoy are when Giancarlo gets sent inexplicably. They are hilarious.
And
they
gets
really
tagged
are.
out like in the middle of the in between third base and home.
He's like
and
a
you're
normal person would score here, so I'm gonna send him, and then he's just out by 30 feet. But
I'll
we
never
get really
forget that
upset.
one,
Like
where he
Twitter
just-
gets really upset.
when he gets tagged out standing up, I don't even know, man. And this is not hate towards Giancarlo. This is, but yeah, those sends were wild.
I absolutely hate that you have to even preface that. It's just
I know.
the climate today in social media is absolute garbage. They should just delete all of it.
Give Rojas
I'm not saying
pom-poms.
this. Like, yes, you have to come out and say, I'm not saying this, because otherwise people think you literally said that. It just drives me
That's
up
the
a
new
wall.
human condition, Gary. Notice I didn't even know I did that. That's just it's second nature to me now.
I'm going to wear a shirt that says, I'm not saying whatever it is you're offended about.
Yeah.
Whatever
Or
it
I
is
am.
you think I said, I didn't say it. There you go.
So yeah, the whole point of IKF is what was it? It was
Well,
night
here you
and
go.
day.
Ed W has the point, and this is true. IKF hits 280 all singles. Didn't help me out there with the dot, but he's
Totally
going to hit
fine.
280 singles. There you go. He's hitting singles. Guess what? You hit singles consistently and you field your position. It's a good player. It is.
Yeah.
So I like the idea.
Beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
like it.
I would say this: the best fit. I don't care what anyone says. If he was healthy, is Moncada, but he is not healthy, and he is never healthy. So
No.
if they got him, I would be very excited because I would just be delusional in thinking that he's going to stay healthy the whole year.
Yeah. The Knicks might as well be like, who'd be a great fit is Joel Embiid if he was healthy. It's like, well, he's never playing.
But
And he makes $60 million. No.
IKF, they already have. It's actually funny because this kind of goes to show you how last year, when we were talking about this, they were going to try and add another infielder. Do you remember that? We
do.
actually didn't suggest just Jazz Chisholm. We were ahead of the 8 ball on this. We suggested Jazz Chisholm and
Rendifo, right? From
Ahmed Rosario. And we're like,
Yes,
why is this guy
yes.
available? Well, the Dodgers hurt us. So they went out and got Rosario, who he was barely on the team. And they got Tommy Edman, who we found out the Yankees were trying to get. And you now see why they were trying to get Tommy Edman. He'd be perfect. That is literally what they're missing. Because, again, Peraza's got a great glove. But the idea of having Edman, who is at least an average fielder, right? Then you have the bat. You have the consistency when guys are on base. He comes through. He can play multiple positions. That's the type of guy that the Yankees were. So they were trying to get him last year. The Dodgers, swooped him up. And by the way, if I showed you his Savant page right now, you would be sick.
Who was the other guy? Lane Thomas that you liked, right? Another speed
I liked
guy.
him. Oh my God, I like throwback. Before Yankees Unloaded, when you came on at the time, it was just an everything, but now it's just a Rams channel. We did I think 25 people tuned in the whole day. We did like a 4-hour trade deadline episode. Do you remember that?
Yeah, people probably are like, oh yeah, these guys started this podcast probably for clout. No,
Yeah.
we are nerds. We literally do video game streams, everything in front of nobody. So
I really should not have looked at this. I'm sick.
It kind of goes to show you
Yeah.
when you put guys who are just good baseball players, you're not going to, nobody shows up to the field to be like, hey, mom and dad, I really want to see Tommy Edman. Now, mind you, some diehard fans know the game. Like they really
We do.
show up to the yard and some diehards will show up and be like, I just love watching that guy play, right? They'll tell you that.
Yeah.
The average person, they're going to see Ohtani, they're going to see Betts, Freeman, right? They want to go see Max Muncy, who hit a grand slam today. They want to see the big names. But when you make these trades, some of the crappy organizations in baseball, they don't know what to do with a Tommy Edman. They don't, because he's going to hit 282 for you. He's going to hit well with runners in scoring position. He's going to get up for those at bats. He's going to make quality outs made on second. He's going to slap a ball the other way. He's just going to play the game the right way, field his position. But when you put him around great players, suddenly it's just something that you can't overcome if you're their opponent. So yeah. A player like Tommy Edman, would IKF be our Tommy Edman? Probably not. But is he of that brand? Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's the great value Tommy Edman.
Yeah, he's the Dr. The Dr. K, Dr. Thunder.
Oh my
Tommy
God.
Edman. But it's a good player. It's a knockoff of a good player. So you can fill in the blank. There's a few
Tommy
IKFs
Edman
out
is
there.
Coca-Cola. He's just cola.
Yeah, he's Pepsi. I know there are a lot of people. Timu Edman. Beautiful virtual.
I like that.
Beautiful.
Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah, I want to throw Scott back up on the super, though, and we'll get to our picks right after. So, Scott, thank you for the 5. Thank you for getting involved with our podcast and supporting. Says, I was so happy, and so are we, to see Jazz take controlled swings. He likes to call them 70% swings. When he does that, he is exciting to watch. And I would agree with you. He is horrible to watch when he thinks he's Griffey. When he thinks he's a 4-hitter that has to leave the yard to make an impact, he is a bad watch. His legs no longer are any type of impact. And then there you have it. We get to see his speed on the bases. Huge plus. Kind of goes back to the super we saw earlier today that the Yankees are one-dimensional. Well, one way, and Scott's super brings it up brilliantly, is that if Jazz can play the brand of baseball that he really should be playing to be a good player, he needs to try to do everything, right? Not hit homers. If you hit a home run, great, but it shouldn't be the main feature of your game. If he can try to be an overall bat, this Yankees offense shouldn't have to wait around for homers to score. Jazz can help you in many ways.
Yeah, you know what's so funny is I saw comments on Jazz about how if Buck Showalter, like kind of a, not a player's manager, kind of like considered a more rougher manager, right? More authoritarian. If Buck Showalter managed Jazz Chisholm, he would hate him. And it was so funny.
Do you think so?
No, that was the comments, right?
Yes.
Did you hear about the broadcast today just glazing Jazz Chisholm? He's like, I love this type of player because it's just a guy that he can beat you in so many different ways. Yeah, he was talking about how he's like, look, he's waiting to see if it's a home run, and now he's going to run faster than 90% of your team. So I don't care that he didn't run right out of the box. And then he's talking about, he's a threat to steal bases, which then puts a lot of pressure. And then, of course, you see the bat. You know he's got enough power to actually hit home runs, but you don't need him to because he's almost more dynamic when he's on the base path. So
is that Showalter essentially locating the fact that you can't always analytically define some of these players? Some players, you just come to the field and they're not gonna beat you with exit velocity. They're not gonna beat you with launch angle. Not every player has to play like Josh Donaldson. Josh Donaldson went out, right, won an MVP, you driving 130. Not everybody has to have that mentality at the plate. We've seen enough of it. There's enough of them, and they should exist. They can exist, but not all 9 have to play that way. Jazz doesn't have to play that way, so I love this super. His Savant page hasn't really caught up, but the value is there, and you see the word value up top.
Yeah,
that's what we're looking for with this player.
Look at his sprint speed. See, we like Savant a lot, but I'll be the first one to tell you, just like I'll tell you with Pro Football Focus, because everyone gets caught up, oh, he's got a rating of, that's man-made, okay? This is not man-made. I mean, it's a man-made system, but StatCast is its own thing, right? But at the same time, it doesn't tell the full story. Is this the player that won the Yankees the game today? Absolutely not. This is not that same player. His sprint speed is probably in the 95 percentile, if I'd had to guess. But the thing is, Jazz doesn't play at that level until he has to. You see him, he doesn't run out of the box like that. And that's just the way he plays.
That's why people hate watching him when we lose. I'm just here to tell you guys right now, the Yankees lose 6-0 and you watch Jazz Chisholm, you're going to want to just... Yeah, you're going to want to cancel your broadcast. I promise you. You're not going to want to watch.
Cancel Gotham, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
With how delayed you are, I almost feel bad. But when you watch Jazz,
wait, you don't feel bad?
Lose,
the hell?
No, it's honestly funny. But when the Yankees lose 6-0, and then you watch Jazz jog down the line, he's an easy target. He just is. Yes. But when the Yankees find a way, you scrap a win. You thought we were going to lose all day, and then someone said in a super, hey, the only reason we won is because Jazz. Okay. Well, my daughter's freaking out. But, the only reason we won is because of Jazz. Well, right, because he brings the intangibles to be a game changer. and they all can't be calculated. It's not a bunch of nerds who can come up that Jazz is the best player ever. No, some of these numbers, by the way, on screen, last thing I'll say before we move on, is that's accumulating the numbers with that first month. He was one of the worst players in the league in the first month.
He was just hitting home runs. That was it.
So if you were able to remove those numbers, the first month, they still count, and there's a reason that they're still up there. But if you could do that, now you'll see what type of player that we're getting today and what we're expecting to get in this Cincinnati series that we're going to bring to you guys. It's brought to you guys by ProfitX. Make sure you guys, by the way, when you sign up with ProfitX, use the code YANKSU. Does us a ton. We would greatly appreciate, if you guys would do that. And of course, make sure you guys subscribe and like this video. Help the algorithm a bit. But Jake, what are we thinking? Because I'm assuming the value is decent for the overall win, given that Alan Winans is on the mound. He's been in the big leagues before. Career 1-4 record. His ERA is 7.20. This is well over a year ago. The 29-year-old takes the mound. What do you expect to see? Because I feel like I don't know a ton about this kid. I hesitate to call him a kid. He's my age. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is what Alan Winans is going to do, okay? He's going to strike out more than a batter an inning. He doesn't really walk guys much, and he keeps that ERA low. That's what we've seen this year in the minors. Now, that is the most recent Alan Winans that we've seen. So, obviously, step up in the major leagues, true. But at the same time, in AAA, you are getting a lot of major league or fringe major league level players. So, I do feel like he's prepared for this moment. I will say the Reds are astronomically better against righties than they are lefties, and almost 90% of their home runs come against righties. So that's a little frustrating, but I think tomorrow both he and Lodolo, we're going to go under on the first 5 innings. This will be 5.5 probably tomorrow. I'm going to take the under on that,
the ball
Gary.
flies, though, in Cincinnati. I'm not saying to change the pick. I agree with it. Cody Bellinger's leaving the yard tomorrow. He's going to play. I just think reverse splits, those lefty on lefty at bats. If he doesn't leave the yard, I'm taking over 1.5 total bases. He's going to make an impact. I just know he will, and there's no way he doesn't play. He's sat twice the past week. There's no way. So I'm riding on there with Cody Bellinger for my over 1.5 total bases. It's going to be the only pick. I don't like to make a ton of picks. That'll be my lock-in.
Yeah, I'm going to go with DJ LeMahieu, who will be back in the lineup tomorrow.
He will be, yes.
So
and obviously
I'll go
Goldschmidt
with him
as well. But Goldie hasn't played in a couple days in a row, so you can justify maybe that he's not cold, but maybe not as acclimated. So we'll see how he responds.
Yeah, so I'm not loving Goldschmidt just because, to your point, I mean, maybe later in the game he could do something. I'm going to pass on Jazz, even though he had over 1,100 OPS in 2023 against the Reds in 17 at-bats. But there's not really a ton to go off of. He has seen Lodolo. He has a 0 batting average. He walked both times, and then he got out one time. So, okay. I'll stick with DJ LeMahieu. And you know what? I like Winans. Let's go in on the Winans over 4.5.
This is insane.
I like him, man. I do. I think
I don't know a damn thing about him. Nothing.
I'm telling you, I'm very excited about him pitching. It's funny. I was bitching that he hadn't been called up yet. Now I see why he hadn't been called up, because they clearly wanted to have him start. They see him as a starter. They don't see him as a reliever. So interesting. Well, we'll see what ends up happening. But yeah, first 5 innings, I'm taking under on 5.5. Gary has total bases for Cody Bellinger.
Oh, yeah.
I got DJ LeMahieu and Alan Winans over on the total strikeouts. We went 2 for 2 today. We had Will Warren strikeouts and Ben Rice over 1.5 total bases. So.
Yeah, and as Jake said, Alan Winans is built up to be a starter. There's a reason he's starting this game. He's not coming out as a long reliever. They're trusting him, right? They're just going to trust him same way they did with Cody Poteet last year. So you're going to see something similar. That's what they're hoping for. drop in the comment section what you think his outing is going to be tomorrow. Do you think he's going 5? Does he give us a quality start? Does he miss bats? Does he get shelled? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to get involved, read all of those. Drop that in the comments, not in the live, in the video after we're done being live. Helps us out in the algorithm. And of course, liking this video helps out a ton.
It definitely does. I'm going to say 5 1/3, Gary. And I'm going to say 6 strikeouts.
Okay.
And he gives up 2 runs.
Okay. Yeah, I'll say he gets through 5 even. Hate to just go like really one off. But yeah, I'll say he goes 5 even, gives up 3. Like you said, Cincinnati hits right-handers. I expect them to hit.
Yeah.
Still hitting. And he'll miss some bats. But the Yankees, if they want to win, they got to score. You can't just go into Cincinnati thinking you're gonna screw around, win a game 3-2. You might do that. You might sneak around, but you're the Yankees. If you want to go somewhere, you got to be able to take care of business on the road in Cincinnati. Let's go do it.
First thing I thought of when you said that is we want the ball first. We're going to score. Matt Hasselbeck overtime.
You throw a pick.
I always thought that was hilarious. But yes, be sure to drop tomorrow Alan Winans. It's not his starting debut, I don't think. So yeah, drop Alan Winans' prediction below on what you think his 2025 Yankee season debut will be. And that's going to do it.
Yep. And like this video.